Hey, Tim, this is Danny Smith. Just calling to tell you how much I appreciate listening to your shows, Truckers' Voices. It's very informative. I really like hearing the drivers' stories, how they got into the trucking industry and maybe what kind of trucks they started out with. And it's just been a lot of fun, and I would encourage any drivers out there to tune in and listen, call in, be a part of it. It's a great show.
Hey, this is Chuck Lopesiger, and I listen to Truckers' Voices every Thursday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook or YouTube with host Tim Taylor and co-host Steve Brand, because it keeps me informed about the industry and the drivers that keep our country moving forward. Don't forget, Thursday, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Be there.
Hi, this is Scott Post, and I love Truckers' Voices because there's always something entertaining and educational for our industry. And it's also hosted by two of my good friends, Tim Taylor and Steve Brand. Tune in tonight. And in the meantime, be safe out there.
Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? My name's Charlie Demchuk, and I'm here to welcome you to tonight's big show. Y'all sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Tim and Steve got a good one in store for you. So have a good night. We'll see you.
Hi, this is Tony Wainwright. I hope you enjoy listening to Truckers' Voices as much as I do. Now, without any further ado, kick back, kick your shoes off, air your corns out, and get ready to listen to another fine show.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody out there in the listening audience is doing good tonight. Hey, it's been a whole week since Steve and I have been with you, so it's good to have you back on Truckers' Voices podcast. Man, we got a good one lined up for you tonight. Hey, we got Mike from the Lutzy 43 Foundation coming on here. He's going to tell you all about it here in just a few minutes. So I'm not going to get into that too much because I want to save it for him. But anyway, I hope all y'all are doing good. I hope that where you went to today and you came back and you did it safe and you did it prosperously, okay? Listen, we have got some interesting guests lined up for the future coming on also. So y'all want to stay tuned to Truckers' Voices page over on Facebook and on the Safety Drive page. And, make sure that y'all keep up with that because we will be putting some of those names out there in the near future. But hey, we got some people lined up and I don't think y'all going to want to miss that. I do want to thank everybody that comes on every week and that comes on and supports us, listen to us on the replay over on YouTube and over on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. I do appreciate everybody that does that. But I'm telling you, y'all want to stay tuned with us tonight. I've had the pleasure of working with Mike on with his foundation before, and I look forward to working with him again in the future. But anyway, let me bring Steve in here, and let's see what old Steve's been up to. Let me bring him in on his song there. So anyway, here we come with old Steve Brand, our co-host.
Rolling, they hating, patrolling and trying to catch me riding.
What's up, Steve?
What's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing awesome. So how was your day of trucking today?
Oh, it's a good day. It was a good day. Yesterday, I popped a tire on a trailer, but hey, we got it in, got out, got her done in about 30 minutes, got her back to the yard, safe and sound, everything. Our good shop. Put a new mud flat bracket on it. Got it ready to go to Louisville. Man, it was a good day. I tell you what, it's been a good week. Traffic's been heavy.
Yeah,
you could tell the schools are starting to get back in because more and more people's out trying to get that last minute vacation in before the schools go back in and everything. And that's the big thing, folks. People's in a hurry to get the vacations out. Man, pay attention to what's going on. Put that phone down. Get your plan in advance. get it figured out which way you're going. If you got a passenger in that car, let them navigate. I'm not seeing a whole lot of trouble, but just trying to keep everybody safe. For me, because everybody knows my motto. Most important trip of the day is that trip home, and I want to go home every day. So, but
right.
Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Right.
We're like Tim said, we got some exciting shows coming up the next few weeks, and hey, as long as y'all are watching, we're talking.
That's right. Absolutely. Steve, you reminded me of something there when you said you popped that tire. It's that time of year, the highways are heating up, and these recaps, they start coming apart. And I just want to remind everybody, tell everybody that, if you're not a CDL driver, just to remind everybody that, if you're riding around these trucks, especially on that right side, don't hang out there. I'll come on and get on by as safe as you can, because those tires coming apart can cause some damage. So you don't want to ride around these trucks. That's why you see what we call gators out there on the road this time of year, because they're coming apart because of the heat. Maybe they're low on air pressure and they're overheating. They're just coming apart. But the heated highways cause them things to come apart sometimes.
Yep. And there's a couple things there. One word that we use a lot on our safety events: linger. Do not linger in the blind spot. Do not linger beside the truck. Just
right.
If the traffic's lined up, back off a little bit, let that traffic clear, and just ease on by that semi. Because when them tires blow, man, they just grenade everywhere. But then, like our fellow professional driver and fellow captain Alfonso Lewis likes to say, we call them gators because they reach out and grab you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
It's on that Share the Road video. Go to YouTube. Search Share the Road. You can watch that video. It's a real good video.
That's right. I like to tell everybody to make sure that you like and share, and it helps us push out the podcast and the replays and all that. So if you'll like and share, we appreciate that. Give us some hearts and give us some thumbs up and all that. I want to thank everybody also that reached out to me, because we did have the hurricane come through right through Valdosta the other day, but everything's fine. Just got some down trees and all, but that, let's just remember those that are still dealing with Debbie. That's she's a slow mover, man. She's dumping some rain in different areas there.
Yep, sure is. Going up the Carolina coast right now. So y'all be safe, man. Don't drive into flooded roads. Don't do it. Don't tempt it. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, I think we kind of belabored this enough. Steve, if you want to, just go ahead and tell everybody, let's get the legal stuff out of the way here. So anyway, I'll put it up there if you'll read it for me.
All right. Everybody remember, the views expressed on this show are those of the host and the guest only and do not reflect those of others.
All right. There you go. All right. So let's bring our guest on in here. We left him waiting in the virtual green room there, and, we didn't leave him with any snacks at all. So we're going to bring him in here on the rocking thing like we always do. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right, Mr. Mike, welcome to Truckers Voices. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Tim and Steve. It's great night here in Marietta, Georgia. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I purposely, Mike, did not try to pronounce your last name. I'm going to leave that up to you, because I know that if I tried it, that South Georgia accent will come out and I'll butcher it.
Well, I can easily say Taylor and Brand, so you should be able to get Lutzenkirche out there. It's 13 letters, but it's phonetically pretty simple. Mike Lutzenkirche.
Well, thank you for coming on Truckers Voices tonight. It absolutely is a pleasure. We was talking before we got started the show that normally we have truckers come on and tell their stories, but I think that your story is very, very important to come on and share, and hopefully that some of our listening audience can take something away from what you have to share with us tonight and apply it and actually teach others.
Well, Tim, my only experience in your profession was the summers of college up in the Chicago area, working for a Mayflower agent, and the full-timers used to laugh when they'd have me back in a 53-foot trailer into a spot, and it would take me 45 minutes. That's the extent of my experience behind the wheel of a tractor trailer.
Oh man, hey, sometimes when I get into a 53, I really have to think about it still myself because I usually, we're pulling the little doubles and they're only 20 foot, 28-foot trailers, so I really have to think about it sometimes.
Yeah, well, great respect for what you guys do as a profession, and you're cut such a key, vital thing to everybody in this country with all the items that are delivered to people on a daily basis. So thank you for what you do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Mike, just come on and tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and where you're from, and just give us a general overview, and then we'll just jump right on into it after you do that.
That sounds great. Well, to the audience, Tim and I was blessed to meet Tim a little over a year ago here in Georgia through our foundation, the Lutzy 43 Foundation. And Tim and I have become friends because he's been a key presenter at our 5-hour safe driving summits that we put out in front of high schools across statewide here in Georgia. But last name's Lutzenkirche, originally from Chicago. Known my wife since second grade. It's the only woman I've ever dated. Been blessed to be married 38 years. We gradually made our way from Chicago to Indianapolis, Indiana, and Carmel, Indiana for about 3.5 years. I was with IBM. Ultimately made it down here to Marietta, Georgia, and here's where we've been since August 1st of 97. Blessed to have 4 kids. I've got 3 daughters and a son. My son, Philip, was the third of the 4 kids, and he went on to play football at Auburn University. He was a high school All-American, played tight end, H-back, had a wonderful career at Auburn from 2009 to 2012. Was a sophomore. He was a key contributor to the national championship team, went on to become a 2-time captain. Had a couple significant injuries his senior year, which really kind of played havoc with his dream of playing in the NFL. So he lasted 1 preseason in 13 with the St. Louis Rams. And Philip then started a career in Montgomery, Alabama. And the weekend of June 27th of 2014, unbeknownst to us, he was invited with some friends to a farm in LaGrange, Georgia, rural area. And we didn't really know where he was that weekend, which is kind of an oddity for our family. Our 3 girls and Philip were very tight. Last time I talked to my son was that Friday evening, the 27th. He said he was probably just going to hang out in Montgomery for the weekend. And then Sunday morning rolled around. A beautiful Sunday morning. It was already about 90 degrees out at 10:30 when we made our way back home from Catholic Mass. We're a Christian family. We're Catholic. Go to Transfiguration Catholic Church here in Marietta. And as I pulled in the driveway that morning, my 2 older girls had already graduated college and living separately in different places in Atlanta, had come home the night before for an event they went to with my wife, Mary. And when we pulled in, Mary noticed something on our front door. Somebody had placed a note on our front door. So I stopped up short of going in the garage. Mary jumped out. She went and grabbed the note. As I pulled into the garage with my daughters, Amy and Ann, I said, where was Philip last night? I knew where my youngest daughter, Abby, was. And they kind of had an odd answer. They said they didn't know. So they immediately started getting on their phone and trying to find some friends. And Mary met us in the house, and all the Post-it note had on it asking us to please call a 706 area code. You immediately know that's not good. I knew that was LaGrange, Georgia area, down on the state line with Alabama, headed down towards Auburn. It was in Troup County. And we made our way out on the deck, and it's hard to explain the look on my daughter's faces and Mary's face, but I called that number and got a live voice who said, I need you to call another number. And I said, I'm not going to call another number. Tell me what's going on. He said, sir, you need to call another number. Please take this number down. I refused to say, we're not doing that. So ultimately I repeated the 10 digits and Mary and the girls repeated it back to me, and I dialed that one. And this time I got a gentleman who introduced himself as the coroner of Troup County. And he said, Mr. Lutzenkirche, and when you can say my last name cleanly, I knew this was about Philip. And he said there was an accident last night and Philip is dead. So, what a way to learn about you lose one of your kids, your only son. No real details about that. And I watched my wife drop to her knees out on the deck. My daughter Amy screamed at the top of her lungs. My daughter Ann turned bright white, and neighbor next door was like, we call them Framley. We're so close down here. Terry Fitz, our dear neighbor, she came over when she heard the scream, and that's how we learned we lost Philip. I estimate it was about 10 minutes into that I realized our youngest daughter, Abby, for your audience, playing football at Auburn, Abby was a U.S. national team member in soccer at that point in her career, and she'd already played her freshman year at the University of Alabama. and she was on a rehab assignment, getting to play one soccer game. She played a semi-pro game to test a repaired hip, surgically repaired hip and an ankle. And it dawned on me she was on a bus making her way back from Jacksonville, Florida, the 5 hours to Atlanta and somewhere in between there. And I was concerned she was going to learn of losing her older brother. She was the only younger daughter, her hero, through social media. I called Abby, and she could be here today with us, and she would tell you he woke me up. He didn't ask me the normal questions he asked me after a soccer game, which are, did you win? Did you play hard? Did you lead? And in this case, it would have been, how'd your ankle hold up? How'd your hip hold up? He simply said, where's Tess? And to your audience, Tess was the only other girl I knew on that team because these were a bunch of college kids coming back, doing some rehab. And luckily, Tess was across the seat. You know, your audience ought to think, what's going through Abby's mind, why I'm calling. Didn't ask the questions. Why is he asking for Tess? Why is Tess thinking I'm calling? I said, Tess, I need to talk to your coach. I didn't even know the gentleman's name. She walked the phone to the front of the bus, and I kind of broke down and said, sir, I need you to watch out for my baby girl because my son just died. So that became the foundation, if you will, of what we created, the Lutzy 43 Foundation. Last name's Lutzenkirche, Auburn fan base nickname Philip Lutzy. If you look at Auburn football up, you'll find out great players like Bo Jackson and Cam Newton, 3 Heisman Trophy winners. And Philip's name is right up there as far as fan base recognition and what he meant to the program and how he treated people. The very next morning, didn't sleep that night, all kinds of family and friends descending into Marietta to our house. Went out early that next Monday morning and quite frankly went for a run and was yelling at my son and yelling at God. My son's big, he's 6'4", 255, looking back at me and said, "It'll be all right, Dad." And I didn't even know the details at that point. And yelling at God, what's going on? I vividly remember God saying, "What are you going to do with this?" There's a lot of great stories about what my son did to serve others.
Right.
Had a servant's heart. And I went to a Starbucks that was important to us that morning and didn't answer my phone, didn't look at my phone. When I finally did, there was over 90 attempts by my wife and daughters to find out where I was, what I was doing. I think there was some fear that maybe they thought I'd be harming myself, losing my son. But I went to that Starbucks. It was a special place for Phil where we met a young lady that he got introduced to and tried to help her through cancer and a surgery. And I just wrote on those recycled napkins words that God put on my heart to say, what words describe my son's character? And those wadded up napkins, bringing them back, ultimately became a curriculum we created called 43 Lessons to Legacy. And I was asked to do the first talk in August of that year by a high school football team that played against Philip when the coach called me and said, "Mike, we just completed our 3 days of acclimation practice down here in Georgia where you can't wear pads." Went into the weekend and I learned on Monday morning that 90% of my kids went to a party and 50% of my kids were drinking. I hope this isn't too early. I hope it's not insensitive, but could you come talk to my team? And that ultimately led to talks at the University of Georgia football and Clemson football, and ESPN got wind of what we were doing, and they actually did a game day feature piece on Philip and the Foundation that November. And I think God's got a sense of humor. And actually it was the weekend that they were doing game day in Tuscaloosa, Auburn's arch rival in Alabama. And that's how we all got started. And I think a key moment to share with everybody, I think, Tim, why you and I ultimately got connected. Right. In late 2017, somebody asked me 2 key questions. I was already thinking about them. At that point, I'd already delivered 200 talks across the country. It's about a 5-minute to an hour talk. It's called Philip's Legacy. What legacy are you leaving? I've never shied away from sharing the poor decisions that were made by Philip and friends that weekend. By the way, the keys that these kids went and drank at a farm all day, learned they rode horses for the first time. In Philip's case, he did something down here at the South that's popular. He went mudding where he was pushing a pickup truck with a friend out of the mud. They started to drink throughout the day, and then about 2:30 in the morning, somehow Philip found his way walking outside the farmhouse, and 2 of his buddies backed up and said, "Get in, we're going to go get a can of dip." One local, rural, 24/7 gas station. So 4 kids got in that vehicle, Philip in the back seat behind the driver. The accident report shows, actually, the police asked me to watch a video that showed Philip walking in, but not Philip, the driver walking in at about 2:30 in the morning to get his can of dip. Then he got back in vehicle on this winding road, 45 miles an hour, no stop, no street lights. The vehicle, black box recording, vehicle hit an embankment at the end of a stop sign where the choice were to go left or right. He missed the stop sign at 77 miles an hour. Took this 2006 Chevy Tahoe 450 feet through the air, multiple spins of it, landed upside down, crushed. The driver was partially ejected and killed. My son was fully ejected and killed. Young lady in the back seat who was also 22 was ejected, but they thought she had passed away. It was read her last words, and a miracle she survived it. And the lesson in all this is the one young man that all four were drunk that got in the front passenger seat did a 2-second habit in his life where he put up a reach to his right shoulder, came down his left hip, and put a seatbelt on. It saved his life. And so we looked at this and what are we going to do? So the questions that came to me in late 17 were, are you concerned about Philip's relevancy? It's now been almost 3 years plus since he passed away. Are you satisfied with what the foundation's accomplished? And the first answer was pretty easy. I was happy with what we're doing, but you can always do more, was my belief. The relevancy thing is certainly a factor that you start to think about. And here we are now, very proud that we hit a 10-year anniversary of the foundation here in 2024. When you look at the nonprofit space, and most nonprofits that kind of were formed in a similar fashion as ours, they're lucky to make it year 5, and we're in year 10. And the reason is, Tim, because we recognized after those 2 questions and did some research, our government, which the Georgia Department of Transportation, at the state level, it's the DOT, it's the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, it's public safety. At the national level, it's NHTSA, it's DOT. They've invested in what they'll call programs, and your audience knows what they are. They're like click it or ticket. You text, you pay, drive sober, get pulled over. They're singular in nature. I'll be polite and say, okay, they're campaigns. Click it or ticket's been around for 20 years.
Right.
My problem is they're singular in nature, and in most cases, unless at the state level they get some funding, you don't see those billboard or radio advertisements.
That's right.
The other thing we've done is we started to look at things, and I'll do a quick little play on words with just the 2 of you guys that your audience will pick up on. And it's going to seem odd, but I'll bring it full circle. So the first thing that comes to mind when I say to you the color pink.
The color pink. Code pink? I don't know.
Okay, code pink. Steve?
When you say pink, I think breast cancer.
There you go. Now, if I say showed you a pink ribbon, your immediate answer probably is breast cancer.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
I get everything, quite frankly, from flowers to girls. I asked this question at a Governor's Office of Highway Safety conference I was at, and at the time, one of the lead state troopers in Minnesota, a guy even bigger than me, said Victoria's Secret. He just kind of chuckled. It was pretty funny, but that's not what I was looking for.
Right.
If I were to show you guys a soldier with another soldier on their shoulder, what would that portray to you?
Teamwork.
That's the image for Wounded Warrior Project.
Right? Yes, absolutely.
Highly successful 20-year-old nonprofit. If I showed any audience, a second grader through 65 and older, big golden M.
McDonald's, that's
right. My point is, what's the image that you think of that when you look at it triggers you to be a smarter and safer driver? It's kind of a trick question, right? Because there is no image.
right?
Yeah.
We've got images such as a phone with a slash through it in a circle. In many states, you'll see the outline of the state with a seatbelt through it. So again, campaigns are singular in nature. There's no campaign about our teenagers should be on our roads after midnight. There's no campaign really on a 16-year-old in the vehicle of a friend who just got their license and passed the graduated license time frame. They're just as important of that vehicle getting point A to point B in their actions as a passenger as the driver themselves. At our age, we don't have to worry about that. So we looked at that and said, how can we not have an image? You know, when we look at our senses of taste, sight, sound, touch, it's what we see triggers the most instant behavior of some type.
That's right.
So what we've done is we've taken Philip's number 43, somewhat unique in athletics, and we've put it on a key, and it says 43 key seconds. So we're the Lutzy 43 Foundation honoring Philip's number, and we believe if we do this right, growing out of the Southeast, our big, hairy, audacious goal, if your listeners are familiar with a great book called Good to Great from the 90s, Our BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, is for this key to become the national system. That when people look at it, they're triggered to make smarter and safer decisions or not be distracted, impaired, or drive unsafe. In this particular, what I'm showing here, it's a decal that we've got trucking companies that are investing in and they're putting on the back of tractors and trailers for us. And all it simply says is protected by 43 key seconds. And our website, quite frankly, stole the idea from our friends at McLeod Software, who have a similar shaped decal, but theirs is powered by McLeod Software and their website.
Yep, you're right.
So that's our campaign. If we do this right, grow this out, and we just think right now, I have this belief, our board does, that the private sector looks at the public sector be responsible for safe roadways. The GDOTs of the world, the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, the Department of Public Safety in Georgia, the Motor Carrier Compliance Division. And I look at that and say, I think they're doing a pretty incredible job, but we're still losing 43,000 lives on our roadways that aren't accidents, they're crashes. Big difference.
Right.
Our big focus, Tim, and where we bring in companies like FedEx and ABF Freight and J&M Tank Lines and Howard Shepherd Trucking, is to partner these trucking companies, civil engineering firms that are working with DOTs on roadways, healthcare companies that are seeing too many people coming to trauma centers, and saying, let's bring the public and private sector together and let's see if we can change the narrative of what's going on our roadways. And that's what we're excited about, motivates me every day.
So Mike, give our listening audience, because I know and Steve doesn't know. So give us a good idea when you go to and you're performing one of these summits at a local high school. Give us a good summary of everything that's going on, because there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. First of all, let me tell you, your listening audience, most likely somebody's lost somebody prematurely that didn't live out a full life, raising a family, raising their own kids, raising grandchildren, passed away naturally in their 80s or 90s, right? We're losing too many people much younger than that. And one of the things we thought we could do is if we partnered up with the Georgia Department of Transportation, and funding's coming out of the Biden bipartisan bill, funding's coming out of the Highway Safety Improvement Program, new monies that have been earmarked for education and awareness. And this 5-hour summit, we simply call Safe Driving Summit. We show up at a high school the day before the summit, and that summit starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. The one that we're seeing more now, I'll give you a good example. We'll be at Stevens County High School, North Georgia, on September 12th. It's literally about 7 to 10 miles south of the South Carolina border. It's a beautiful town. We'll have about 1,500 kids in an all-school assembly for 75 minutes. And in that opening keynote, I will deliver part of the presentation. Our friends at GDOT will give relevant statistics to that community, relevant statistics to teenage drivers. What we think is important is to put all levels of law enforcement in front of those kids in uniform. So Lieutenant Maurice Range travels across the state with us, and he'll kick this off. And he's actually going to read from a live script of a real teen crash. And as he's doing that, we've got local law enforcement. So we've got a county sheriff, city police, a school resource officer where they exist, a Georgia Motor Carrier Compliance Division state trooper, first responders. We'll have fire, EMS, a record service. We'll have an air evac representative, and then we'll have a Georgia DOT hero or champ driver. That's the roadside assistance program in Georgia. And as Maurice is wrapping up the true accident script, crash script, we project that crash site. And that's when you get the first ooh and ahs from the students when they see that crash site. And then each of those first responders takes only 3 minutes to explain who they are, what they do as an individual at this summit, and then how they collectively work together. Then 300 to 400 of those students, we try to get the schools to identify those 15-year-olds who just received their driving permit or are anxious to get that permit, or those 16-year-olds that just received that driver's license, to be the core audience. And they rotate through 4 30-minute breakouts. One breakout is simply law enforcement. It's those 5 levels of law enforcement with no presentation, no script, saying, again, here's what I do individually in my jurisdiction in a crash. Here's how I collectively work with all the first responders, including all the law enforcement you see here. And more importantly, here's what we're seeing of you in our jurisdictions of teenage drivers. And Maurice is pretty impactful because he gets a text every morning at 8:30. Unfortunately, the fatalities that occurred over the 24-hour reporting period leading up to that morning. He'll pull a student out of the audience and say, please read this. The first thing that student is reading is ages 14, 27, 18, 4, 892. Please read the counties this took place in. And then the last thing he has them read, based on the data that's available at those crashes, seatbelt, no seatbelt, no seatbelt, 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 seatbelt. That's how they start that law enforcement session. Another breakout is we reenact a teen coming into a trauma center. We have anywhere from 8 to 10 trauma personnel. And the great thing in Georgia, and this is what I'm just thrilled about, there's a little bit of a saying in roadway safety that there's no competition for safety. I would tell you I've got a little different perspective. I think there's too much competition. I think there's too many people want to take credit for this. And I quite frankly don't care who gets credit. My whole motivation, Tim and Steve and your audience, we got to change the narrative. I don't want other families to get that Post-it note or that officer walking up their door like we did. And these crashes are all avoidable. They're not accidents, they're crashes, right?
Right.
So in that reenactment, we wheel in a student that acts that's been in a crash, and you have 8 to 10 professionals in uniform for multiple trauma centers that they do a roll call. They describe the crash that's being called in, what they know of the victim, and then they're going to show the 10 most commonly used medical instruments that are going to be used on that teenager in an attempt to save their life. It's very impactful. Then they move on to the next breakout, which is a rehab. You've been in the crash. You've been to the emergency room. You've gone through surgery or multiple surgeries. We're going to do the best we can in rehab to get you back to pre-crash status, both physically and mentally. And it's amazing. A simple lesson of taking kids and say, do me a favor, grab a T-shirt. We set it up. You should be getting an XL. They're getting a large or a medium, so it's already too small for them. It's inside out. We tell them to sit on their dominant hand. They've got to put that T-shirt on right side out and put it on with their weak hand. It's amazing to watch these kids struggle with that. The fourth breakout brings you guys to the forefront. More and more high school systems across the country, quite frankly, certainly the Southeast, are not offering driver's ed.
Right.
I have the perspective and the mindset that I don't think these teenage kids are getting enough time learning how to drive around big trucks, tractor trailers. The latest statistics that I go by with reports that I read are roughly 75 to 82% of the crashes or accidents involving a tractor trailer are caused by light vehicle drivers, not you professionals.
Right.
And in the audience, don't get me wrong, we have some bad characters in every industry we're in.
Yes. Right.
But how do we handle this? So we bring in 2 80,000-pound tractor trailers into every summit. We used a Georgia Motor Carrier Compliance Division logoed vehicle as the blind spot. These kids break out. Half of the kids go to the front end of the truck in their breakout group. Half go to the back end of the truck. They get 15 minutes of education from a motor carrier compliance trooper at the back end, what their role is, that they're not the enemy of that CDL driver. They're trying to make sure everything's safe, helping them out, while the other half are getting instructed by you professionals at the front of the truck. These kids it's amazing they don't know what blind spots are. Most of them have never been in a tractor trailer to get the vantage point that you gentlemen have.
Right.
And it's so important. They don't understand, why you've got I'm going to lose the terminology here, but that rail at the back of the truck so that you can't go underneath that trailer, right? And then we flip the kids out front to back for the second half of the breakout. So these kids will rotate through these breakout sessions, and then we wrap up most of the summits with an incredible 24-year-old young lady and her mom. J.C. Thomas is the young lady. Beth Ann is her mom. They live down in a small area of Hoboken, Georgia, southwest Georgia. They're hay farmers. They live out in the rural community. They've got a gravel road that leads them off their property across an unmarked train tracks. And at age 17, somehow J.C. didn't see or hear a train. The train didn't see her. She's the only person in the vehicle as the driver. She was hit by that train. She broke her collarbone. She had a slight gash on her forehead that did not require stitches, but unfortunately, she had a traumatic brain injury. She spent 9+ months at Shepherd Center, a world-renowned brain and trauma recovery center here in Atlanta. And then she was sent home, and she's still rehabbing. We bring her to these summits. She has balance issues, so it's impactful for the kids to see her walk on the stage. She has speech issues, but Katina with the Georgia Department of Transportation Communications team does a wonderful job of interviewing Beth Ann and JC about what's their life like. What has this done to their life? And I'll tell you what's impactful for your audience is when you tell the high school kids in the audience, you're definitely sitting next to a classmate. You're most likely sitting next to a good friend, a fellow teammate, whatever it is. Do me a favor and now look at each other. Take a good look, because JC's going to tell you how her friends at age 16 and 17 really aren't in her life anymore because she is so different and changed. She can't go to bachelorette parties because her mom would have to go. She has to live with her parents. And it's amazing to see the impact on these kids. And that wraps up the 5-hour summit. We've delivered 16 to date. We'll deliver 5 more this fall. Our partners at GDOT have challenged us to figure out how we can deliver 4 per month across each month of the year. And we're working on how we can do that. We believe if we do this partnership right in Georgia, that we can uplift it and take it to other states. And right now I'm excited. I'm waiting on a contract to come back from the Alabama Department of Transportation. We're in discussions with South Carolina, Mississippi, and we're trying to make this walk before we run to really make the impact out there that we can.
Right. And I've got some more questions, but I know Steve, he's probably got several questions. So I'm going to back off the mic a little bit and let Steve get in there, Mike.
That was going to be my main question. How far out do you branch? I've got a connection here that I need to get a hold of because I think something like this needs to happen. We go out, we do the Share the Road program. And like you said, we go all 4 corners of the truck and everything. But the main thing is I can stand there and I can talk all day long, but I've got to get them kids in that truck. I will put teachers, I will put anybody behind the wheel of that truck that wants to. That's, I encourage it because you got to see what we can't see. That's the best way to tell it. But that was my main question, and you answered that you're right there in Georgia now. You're stepping over to Alabama, but you are looking at branching out, correct?
Yeah, Steve, what's interesting, right? We're a 3.5 full-time equivalent foundation with a great board, great partners, but we're being recognized. I was blessed to be the keynote speaker in Phoenix back in April at the American Trucking Association's Safety, Security, and HR conference. It's led to other opportunities with companies like Zonar Systems to be their keynote speaker at their conference in Dallas in October. We're getting recognition from other companies. We right now, with great leadership of our board, what we're thinking how we can really do this quicker is, do we build almost like a franchise model where we sit and say, let us bring this to a state. Let us identify people in that state that can deliver this. What's become very powerful is Motor Carrier Compliance Division troopers in Georgia. They want to work with the truck drivers. They're not the bad guys. They don't view the truck drivers as the bad guys.
Exactly.
We've been able to bring them into the program with the Georgia Department of Transportation. So MCCD is chomping at the bit to be at these summits. They use our 43 key seconds units that I'm kind of showing you right now, and I'll explain this in a minute. And they're handing these out with the MCCD logo on it when they're doing roadside inspections or scheduled inspections at trucking companies. What's great about here in Georgia, we don't have a statewide healthcare provider. So Wellstar Health Systems out of Atlanta is our partner. And they'll tell you, quite frankly, we don't want people coming off of roadway incidences into trauma centers. It usually doesn't lead to a good outcome, right? It usually leads to a death or some permanent physical injury or mental challenge. We don't want them here. And they'll tell you, here's the great thing about us, though. Our scrubs may be green. Piedmont Healthcare's may be blue. North Georgia Medical Center may be orange. We don't care. We don't care who writes our checks. We as trauma professionals want to work together to get this education to this very keen audience of teenagers. What we love about what we try to teach is to take your audience through for a minute. There was no symbol. So we said, what if we put that 43 key seconds on a key? And what if we, on the opposite side of the key, we typically put 43 in the word TO, 43, 2 distraction free. We put that key on a lanyard that has that sayings through it. And then we've got our third generation, looks like a credit card. It's a countdown. So the key is important, but the countdown is important. Basically what it says, before you start your vehicle, no matter who you are, what you're driving, where you're driving, what time of day you're driving, or your experience, Ask yourself, do I have a clear head, clear hands, clear eyes? And then this 4th step is click it. We tie into that 20-year program, a click it or ticket.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, clear head? You ask yourself, am I drug impaired? Alcohol impaired? Am I fatigued? Am I emotionally impaired? Or am I technology impaired? And you have to be mature enough or smart enough to say, if any of those, I'm not prepared to drive.
Right.
I've got to wait, or I've got to give the keys to somebody else. Goes into clear eyes and clear hands. Your clear eyes, you've set your radio, your dashboard set, your phone's up, your mirrors are set, your rear view mirror set. Your eyes are focused to be on that road and doing all the pivot points you need to make. What does clear hands mean? Again, you've set your phone down in your cradle, in your glove compartment, in your cup holder. You're not holding it. More and more states are becoming hands-free states. I know you guys, from your vantage point, don't see it. We've had it in Georgia since July 1st of 18, and you'd never know it. It's hard. It's hard to police. The penalties, in my opinion, aren't strong enough. But clear hands means that you've got yourself the old driver's ed at 10 and 2. You're ready to go. You're not playing around. Nothing's on your lap. You're not eating lunch. So it's clear head, clear hands, clear eyes, and then time to click it. We believe if you do something for 21 straight days in athletics, it becomes a habit, good or bad.
That's right.
You memorize this checklist, you remove the card, then that key and lanyard, in most states, it's legal. It can go around your rear view mirror. And now that key is your visual image in that vehicle. The next time you think you're tempted to be a super speeder, kids don't have the courage to tell their friends, I'm not going to be a super speeder. Teenagers have the courage now to tell their friends in the back seat, put your seatbelt on. It's my vehicle, my parents' vehicle. They're not going to do that text, Facebook Live, answer that email. We think it triggers behavioral change, and we call it 43 key seconds.
Right. Well, Mike, go on and tell us a little bit more of an incentive for is seniors or either sophomores. I'm not real sure which one it is, but there is an incentive there with a scholarship. Tell us a little bit about the scholarship.
Yeah, we're pretty proud. My son was known for doing things off the field. For kids, Philip just had a love in his heart for kids that were born special, spina bifida, different levels of autism, some type of abnormalities, or they develop some type of illness, cancer. And he just invested his time, time, talent, and treasure. In the Christian world and Catholic, that's the definition of tithing. I've come up with my own definition of teenage tithing when I'm a teenage audience, because I don't believe teenagers think if tithing is to give money to a cause or to church. I don't think most of them don't have jobs. How do I have money? I can't tithe. I don't have any. Nobody thinks they have enough time. So no treasure, no time. It doesn't, regardless of what talent you have. So time, treasure, and talent. And I think in teenagers, I encourage them to look inside and say, but inside you have something that will trigger all of those to happen. It's called tenderness. So I call that the 4 T's of tithing for teens. I don't use that with corporate audiences, but we're proud that we created the PFL scholarship. To my family, it means Philip Francis Lutzenkirche. To the community, it means Prepared for Life. It's a $4,300 scholarship. We've awarded almost $500,000 in those scholarships since we started the program 2 years after Philip passed away. Eligibility is to any junior and senior in this country in high school. Undergraduate students, graduate students in college. We think we've got a pretty good rigorous process to go through and be awarded a scholarship. They're good at any 2-year, 4-year college, accredited college. So we give out scholarships in that nature, Tim.
Absolutely. I would like to just take Steve, do you have anything else? I'd like to take just a minute and show the video from their website.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to show that. So y'all just bear with me and let me go ahead and get that up, and I'll start the video. But
reduce that number.
This summit is incredibly important to me because of all the teenagers that I haven't been able to save.
The reason why I believe in this message is because I've seen a lot of things being on the road. If we don't have to make those phone calls to those family members saying that, hey, that your loved one's not coming home.
It knows no social economic group. I mean, it could happen to anybody.
and it's because of a preventable traffic accident.
It's an awesome feeling to be able to drive, but there is so many dangers.
If these students leave here educated to do the right thing while driving, make sure you're not distracted. Make sure you wear your seatbelt. Make sure you make good decisions, and make sure that you give yourself enough time to react. If you react, this summit will have done what I would like to do.
We have signed a multi-year agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation. I'm on the campus of the University of West Georgia today for our inaugural Teen Safe Driving Summit. When you lose a son, you want to honor him. I'd just be remiss if we didn't look at what we can do so other parents don't end up in my wife Mary's shoes, my shoes. So I'm motivated to get in front of these teens because I want these kids to learn that you can lose your life with a poor series of decisions in a quick time frame.
When you look at the numbers of fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways, it's alarming. Last year alone, over 40,000 deaths across the country. In Georgia, 1,700 fatalities. I mean, that's multiple fatalities happening every single day.
Distracted driving's accounted for 50% of all fatalities, and that number's just exponentially gotten larger.
16 to 24 is the age bracket that's usually most involved in accidents. They're just not aware of the big picture.
You have a father who loses a son, and he goes and tells that story and turns it into something productive for others. That's part of our mission as a university, right? It's to teach.
We're going to be bringing high schoolers into a 5-hour event that starts with a keynote address that I'll deliver. Then they're going to go to 4 powerful breakouts that'll be led by an insurance company, a healthcare company, a trucking and transportation company, and then multiple levels of law enforcement.
Having a summit in your city is a fantastic way to connect with the adolescent population who's at greatest risk.
Even saving just one life from one of these conversations and these presentations is something that I believe every community should embrace and want to participate in, and it will be something that can impact many lives to come.
I hope that they leave with a message that they can also share with others, but to be not a distracted driver, to focus, to have their mind set on what they're doing, to change the narrative, to be different.
All right, that's a very powerful, impactful video there, Mike. And I had not seen it before tonight. I was actually thumbing through some of the videos and all, but that's very impactful. So, being able to be a part of what you're doing has been great, and to share with what Steve and I, what we know about, sharing the road and putting that into practice and intertwining it with your foundation there has been absolutely a great thing. So I want to thank you for letting me be a part of that. And I look forward to helping you out again in the future with it also. But how many schools do you see yourself being a part of this year? Do you have a goal set?
Yeah, just give you a couple of data points because we need it when we presented to the Alabama Department of Transportation. The summits that we had delivered up through this past spring semester before summer, 49 schools had representation of kids at the summits, over 7,200 kids attended these summits. Right now, we've got 5 scheduled for the fall here in Georgia. There's 2 more that are pending. Again, the challenge that our friends at GDOT are throwing at us are we want to do more. So we're trying to figure out how we can gear up to do that. So I think it'll just continue to grow, Tim. And I'd be remiss if I didn't share with your audience. Here's another belief I have. There's a growing concept in the corporate world, in the private sector, called corporate social responsibility. I go back again, and I think even in the trucking and transportation space, I think I've identified some gaps. So I sit down with the C-suite at companies and say, I'd like to ask you about 3 types of personnel. You give me a grade of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. And it's about your safety culture, specifically safety behind the wheel, how frequently you present it, you hold your people accountable to it, you frequently update it, and how effective it is. And the first people, they kind of look at you like, okay, this is going to be great, right? We're a trucking company. And that first group I ask is probably most of your listeners. It's you professional drivers.
Right.
And usually it's the CEO that takes the pride to answer that. And the average score I get is 7. That's a good score, right? And if you put it into sports, if you're shooting 70% from the free throw line in the NBA, that's not all that great. But if you're hitting 700 in baseball, you're better than Ted Williams. You can be in the Hall of Fame, no questions asked.
Right.
But then now they're looking around like, who's he going to ask about next? And I said, well, what about all those employees that are important to your organization? I'm assuming they all are, that don't drive a logoed vehicle. What about that warehouse manager?
That's right.
Your dispatcher, your HR personnel, your accountant, your legal staff, your social media team, your janitorial. Are you giving them the same expectation, those that drive their own vehicle to and from work, the same protocols to follow and adhere to that you have for your professional drivers? And you get just stares around that room of the senior leadership team. And the average score I get is 5 or less. And in most cases, I've gotten zeros. So now they're really thinking, okay, wow, now maybe we're learning something. Maybe there's something we can do to employee benefits and employee appreciation. In the 30 audience, I already know the answer because of what they're giving me those low scores on all those non-CDL personnel. It's what about packaging those safety protocols you expect your drivers to use to package it so they can take it home to their family members, their spouses, their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their driving age children. And now you get, Mike, we're not doing that at all. So I truly believe the simplicity of what we're doing with 43 key seconds and the impact of it is a risk mitigation play for any trucking company that's out there, any corporate client that's out there, quite frankly. At a minimum, it will give them a reason to go have that conversation again with the CDL team that's tired of having the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the cameras facing in, facing out. And I think they've all grown past. You're not trying to get me. You're trying to protect me and the company. It's another reason to reinvigorate that conversation. And it's based on a human story. And it's 43 key seconds. But it certainly pushes you an opportunity to go to the rest of your employees and their family members. And that's where you start to do the crossover into the community and the corporate social responsibility of creating roads, safer roads, right within the community these trucking companies are thriving in. So we're excited about what the concept of corporate social responsibility can have and programs we're trying to build around that to give companies an easy, inexpensive way to go and change the narrative on 43,000 plus deaths on our roadways due to poor decisions.
Right. I'm going to let Steve ask a question, but Steve, I may break back in because we missed a call, and I know who it's from, and I know he wants to share also. So let me call this audience member back, and he wants to come in and share too. So go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead and make that phone call.
Yep.
That what you just explained, Mike, does not surprise me because, everybody depends on that professional driver. Like you said, for lack of a better word, they kind of forget about the common folk, the people in the offices. They're really relying on that professional driver, and we need to get that word to everybody. And that was one of the questions when I tried out for America's Road Team. They said, what do you see in your struggles and everything, and I said, he's getting the safety word out to everybody. It's so hard. And just on a personal note, I try to lead by example, and I have gotten more of my fellow drivers. I hope they're doing what they say they're doing, and that's slow down. I'm not in a hurry. If I lose 30 seconds at a traffic light, so what? You're not going to make it up. Even if you've got a fast car, fast truck, you're not going to make it up because you have that potential of a mistake happening that could cost you a whole lot more time.
That's right.
So, but I just want to say why Tim's setting that up. Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for coming on. I am going to further this on here in Ohio and see what I can't get rolling maybe. So, we gotta get it out there. And, like we talked in the beginning of the show, like I said, it's winding down that school is starting in certain areas. and people's in a hurry to get that last minute vacation, and this is, and we got to start with the teenage drivers. And, they always say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I call BS on that.
We can all learn. And, down here in Deep South, these kids are back in school already, which is crazy to believe, but
right.
we're seeing the roads busier now in that, that 6:30 to 8:30 time frame, with more teenagers driving to high schools, more buses on the roads, and so forth.
Yeah. And more schools are having funding trouble for buses. So more and more kids are getting them licensed, driving to schools. Schools are putting in parking lots to accommodate for those kids driving and everything. But, I like I said, I call BS on that. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, because if you're a mother, a father, an aunt, an uncle, or a grandparent, and you see your niece, your nephew, your son, your daughter, or your granddaughter, your grandson, you're going to pick that up from them.
I'll tell you what, Steve, the power of this, quite frankly, is it gives high school students, I coach them up to say, we as parents, we as adults need to be coached up a lot too.
Right.
And there's a respectful way to teenagers to do it, but what a great tool to take home and have a conversation with mom and dad. Hey, heard from this guy who lost his son, had all these experts around us from different areas of law enforcement, trucking, healthcare, first responders. Mom and dad, you're on your phone a lot when we're driving. I love you too much. Start to put it down. So,
right. Yep. He's a deep thought over there.
I lost the Bluetooth connection to the board here, so I couldn't connect the phone. So I do apologize. I apologize to Scott. Scott Post wanted to come on, and he wanted to talk to us, but I just cannot get the board to connect up. I had it connected up earlier. For some reason, we lost the connection on it, so I do apologize about that.
Well, Tim, and this might help your audience. You can learn more about what we're doing. We're down here in Marietta, Georgia. Our website is www.lutzie43.org. That's LUTZIE 43.org. And you can reach us, and we'll respond. This is again, our personal belief is we don't need credit for what we're doing and saving lives. And I get asked a lot, how do you know what we're doing is working? And my typical first answer is not meant to be a smart aleck one, but how do you measure something that doesn't happen?
Right.
So
exactly.
we're getting feedback from people that it's really encouraging when a trucking company helps invest in what we're doing and puts that protected by decal on their vehicle, and somebody sees it and they take the time to learn more about it and they contact us. And we've got some partners that have come on board because of those decals.
Right. Right. And I've got it up there, www.lutzie43.org. And they can also find you right here on facebook.com/Lutzie43 if they want to check you out. And also on Instagram at Instagram.com/Lutzie43 Foundation. So I tried to cover them all there for you, Mike.
Appreciate that, Tim.
Yes, sir. And we are actually coming up to the top of the hour here. So we always try to cut it off at an hour. But, man, it's flown by. It's absolutely been great having you on. I'm so glad you got to come on and share, and with our listening audience. We'll have to have you back on in the future, and you can give us some updates on what's going on with the foundation and all. Steve and I, we normally end with a word of encouragement and safety. So I would like for you to end us with a word of encouragement and safety.
Yeah, guys. Again, we're losing too many people on our roadways. So to me, the encouragement is 43 seems like a long time, but a little research we did early on, when people told me, you're asking somebody to do something for 43 seconds, they're not going to do it. It takes too long. When you go to set your GPS or your driving tracking tools on your dashboard, it takes 42 seconds. When you do it on your phone, it takes about 32 seconds because we're all more familiar with our phones. 43 seconds is not too long. And think about if you start to go and do 43 key seconds, the lives that you might save by decisions. And the last thing I'll close with is my dear friend, Lieutenant Maurice says, remember, a yellow light does not mean go.
That's right.
A yellow light means prepare to stop.
Right.
Right. And I've heard him say that too, and I that's absolutely. Some people speed up when they see that yellow light. So, but it does mean prepared to slow down for sure, for sure. All righty. Well, Mike, thank you. If you'll hang around just for a minute after we go off the air here, we'd like to talk to you on the other side. Steve, go ahead, brother.
Thank y'all. Mike, thank you very much. Definitely listen to the replay again tomorrow because you're going to pick something up that you missed tonight. Like I always say, remember, folks, the most important trip is that trip home. God bless y'all.
Absolutely. And hey, listening audience, we do have some shows lined up coming up in the next couple of weeks. I just want to stay tuned for that. But we thank you. Tomorrow is Friday, and as I always say, there's people that's going to be traveling, trying to get to where they're going. Whether it's still vacation season. It's the weekend. But you know what? Like Steve says, the best trip is the trip home. But as I always say, is you got to look out for those who aren't looking out for themselves. So we'll see you next week right here on Truckers Voices. Y'all have a good one.